Today's topic is how is the exodus from Egypt, the roadmap to the final Geulah. The exodus from Egypt is the roadmap to final Geulah. But before we begin, I read on Thursday's paper, Sharon, did you read Thursday's paper, that Obama is puzzled, he's mystified, he's frustrated how Israel knows exactly what's going on in the secret talks with Iran. Friday's Post had it. The White House are frustrated, they're mystified, and they can't understand how Israel, the Jews in Israel, know what's going on in the inner sanctum between the secret negotiations between Iran and the United States. How does Israel know what's going on? It's top secret, the CIA, the FBI. How do you know what John Balkari is saying to the, the mullah there? How do the Jews know? So Obama he's frustrated. He calls up the ambassador Dan Shapiro. This is a true story. He says, Ambassador Dan, you're Jewish. Tell me, how did the Jews know the secrets that are going on inside the secret negotiation between the United States and Iran? What's the secret? So Ambassador Dan Shapiro says, listen, they have a place that's called Shul. They go Shabbos morning to Shul, and somehow, after they put on the talis, say Shalom Aleichem, they say, what's new? And all the secrets come out. Dan Shapiro, you should know, because he goes to Shul on Shabbos morning. So Obama says, listen, Dan, listen, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to pretend that I'm an Ethiopian Jew. Sneak me into Israel. Teach me what to do Shabbos morning in Shul. I go Ethiopian Shul. And I want to find out, what's the secret of the Jews? What did they say in Shul that they know what's going on behind the FBI, CIA secret negotiations between John Balkari and the mullahs? So Dan says, okay, Obama, I'll prep you. What you do Shabbos morning. First thing, you put on your talis, and then you say, Shalom Aleichem, Reb Yid, to the neighbor next to you, what's new? What's new? And then, okay, so he's training Obama how to put on the talis for 6 weeks, how to put on the talis, how to say Shalom Aleichem. He's a little bit slow, but after 6 weeks he gets it, how to wrap himself in the talis, how to say Shalom Aleichem, Reb Yid, to his neighbor, what's new? He's ready, 6 weeks. Ambassador Dan has been coaching him and prepping him, right, through the Facebook. Obama's ready to sneak into Israel as an Ethiopian Jew in a shul in the German colony, Ethiopian shul. So Obama comes there Shabbos morning, disguised Ethiopian Jew, puts on his talis, perfect. Then he says to his neighbor Yid, Shalom Aleichem, Reb Yid, what's new? So the neighbor says, what's new? Didn't you hear Obama's in town? David, get it? What's new? Didn't you hear Obama's in town?
He's here in the shul.
Oh. Okay, ready? One more story? Yeah. Abe Stein works for a CPA firm. Remember Abe Stein? He works for a CPA firm. Yeah, an accounting firm. And it's all true. Some just didn't happen yet. Get it? Some didn't just happen yet, but they're all true. Abe Stein works for a large CPA firm, and it's a few days before Pesach, and he comes over to his boss. He says, boss, listen, my wife needs me to take off the next few days to do some heavy cleaning. I have to have the days off. My wife needs me to help her do the heavy lifting and cleaning. So the boss says, Abe, you're a CPA. You know it's tax season now. Abe, I just can't spare you. I can't give you the days off. We're in the middle of tax season. So Abe says, gee, boss, thank you. I knew I could count on you. Don't you get it? I knew I could count on you. Okay, now we're ready. We say something very strange. Halach ma'anya. We say, Hashata Avdei, this year we're slaves, L'shana haba b'nei chayrin. Next year we're going to be free. I gotta be free. I gotta be free. Now, I don't know about you, John, but I don't feel, where's John? John, I don't feel like I'm a slave. How could I say, sitting at the Pesach Seder, Hoshata Avdei, this year I'm a slave, L'shana haba b'nei chorin, and next year I'll be free. Am I lying? Last time I checked, I was not a slave. So what am I talking about? There's more than one type of slavery, John. People living in democracy can also be a slave. A slave to fashion, to isms, humanism, secularism, a slave to Facebook, a slave to fashion, money, political concepts. There's more than one type of slavery. A person living in a democracy can also be a slave. A slave to his Yetzer Hara. Hopefully by next year I'll get rid of my spiritual slavery, no longer being slave to Facebook, smartphone, dumb phone. The Rabbeinu Bachai puts it very succinctly. The choice of a Jew is Eved liyotzro or Eved liyitzro. To be a slave to your Creator or to be a slave to your Yetzer Hara. We all got to be a slave. Depends what do you want. Choose your slavery. The Mishnah says, Ein ben choirin elamisha osik patorah. Who's truly free? A person that occupies himself with Torah. If you become God's slave, then you're not a slave to your passions, to your political concepts, to money, to fashion. To be a slave of God is to rise above our petty spiritual slavery. King David says in Psalms, Ani avdecha ben amosecha, ani avdecha ben amosecha, ani avdecha ben amosecha. King David sings in Psalms, God, I am your slave, the son of your slave woman. John, that's how you talk about your mama? Well, King David said it. He said, God, Ani avdecha, I'm your slave, ben amutecha, the son of your slave woman. Now, I would say my mother's an Eshes Chayil, a Balas Chesed. You don't think Mrs. Yishai, King David's mother, was a Balas Chesed and Eshes Chayil? And yet King David says, what is she?
What's her name?
Mrs. Yishai. That was her name. Ani avdecha ben amesecha. God, I am your slave, the son of your slave woman. Because the highest compliment that King David could pay his mother, Evelyn, is what? That she's a slave of God. And I'll prove it to you. So he wasn't dissing his ma. On the contrary, John. He was giving her the greatest compliment. The greatest compliment is to be a slave to God. I'll prove it to you. The greatest human being that ever lived, Moshe Rabbeinu. Beautiful. God gave him a very short eulogy. Vayom Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem. You would think great rabbi, great tzaddik, great anav. God makes his eulogy of him very swift. Vayom Hashem Moshe Eved Hashem. Moshe died there, the slave of God. So the highest calling human being can be in this world is to what? The highest compliment is to be an Eved Hashem. Because that's how God eulogized Moses. Despite being the greatest rabbi, the greatest tzaddik, the greatest humble person, Eved Hashem, that says it all. So King David was paying his mother the highest compliment when he said, God, I'm your slave, the son of your slave woman. His mother was proud of it. That's a title, Eved Hashem. Now, even though we're not physical slaves, but many people are enslaved to political concepts, peace process, humanism, secularism, smartphone, dumb phone, Facebook. Isn't that a slavery, David? For people that are mesmerized by Facebook. So Hashata Avdei, Lishana Haba b'nei chorin. Yes, Evelyn.
I always use the word servant, not slave.
But tell it like it is. The Torah says Eved. Eved means a slave. We're not PC here. We tell it like it is. Eved Hashem. Now, Exodus from Egypt, says the Zohar, was the roadmap to the final Geula. Not the road trap, but the road map. The Exodus from Egypt is the roadmap to the final Geula. And I'll prove it to you this afternoon. In the Exodus from Egypt, we sing Az Yashir Moshe. Then Moshe sang a song to God with the Jewish people. And he says, Ozi v'zimrosh ka. My strength and my song is God. But God's name, John, is written defectively. Ozi v'zimrosh ka. Should have said Ozi v'zimrosh yud kei vav kei. But in Pashas B'Shalach, by the Shira at the Red Sea, the Jews sing, God is my strength and my song, but God's name is written defectively, Yud Kei. If you look at Isaiah chapter 12, you have that same verse, Ozi v'zimrosh ka, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Isaiah repeats the same words of the Song of the Sea with one great difference, David. He says, God is my strength and my song, ka, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the question is, John, why is God's name written defectively by the Exodus from Egypt? And in Isaiah 12, which sings about the Messianic era, there God's name, the same song is written what? Yud Kei Vav Kei, complete the way it has to. The same Az Yosha Hilu Yeshua. In the book of Exodus, it's written defectively, Yud Kei. But in Isaiah 12, when the Jews will sing again the song of the Mashiach, there it's written what? Completely. Why is that? A Jew answers a question with another question. 3 days after the marvelous splitting of the Red Sea, the Jews were on cloud 9. Literally cloud 9, floating on air. 3 days later, they came to a place and there was no water. And they became bitter. What happened? 3 days after the most awesome experience, where the Medrash says a lowly maidservant saw more God than the great prophet Ezekiel. So 3 days later, what happened? No water. Riding high in April, shot down in May. That's life. Bob, what happened? Riding high? 3 days later, what a crash. From the heights of ecstasy, singing a song at the sea, 3 days later they become bitter, disappointed, no water. Why? Says the Zohar HaKadosh, because the Exodus was just the beginning of the story. The long and bumpy road, ta-ta, winding road. It began at the Exodus. But it was incomplete, and therefore Isaiah in chapter 12, after he sings the same song at the sea, this time God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, he says, Ushafte mayim b'sason mane Yeshua. Ushafte mayim b'sason. We know that mayim is a symbol of what? Of Torah. So at the song of the sea, you know why they had no water? For the same reason God's name was written incomplete. The Exodus was incomplete. It just began the redemption. It's not going to end until Isaiah 12, when we sing the same song, but instead of saying Yud Kei Vav Kei, we're going to sing the same song, Oziv Zimros Yud Kei Vav Kei, Vahivil Yeshua. And then we'll have water, which is a symbol of spirituality, because then Yehuda, the Exodus will finally begin complete. And therefore what? The Exodus was just the beginning. And therefore God's name is written incomplete by the Exodus. There's no water to teach that we're not finished. The story began 3,327 years ago. It's only going to end, Ruvain, when Mashiach comes. And therefore at the Seder, we put a cup of Eliyahu. We read yesterday's Haftorah. Who's going to announce the final Geula? Eliyahu Hanavi. So therefore it's appropriate, Sonia, at the Seder, we put a cup of Elijah, because we're focusing not just on the Exodus from Egypt. That was just the beginning. Keep your eye on the prize.
Rabbi?
Yes.
So at the end of in the Haggadah, at the end of Vaficha, right before Hallelujah,
Right.
that's the last word, it says we will sing a new song. Shira Hadashah.
Shira Hadashah.
Is that the song you're talking
Oh,
about?
Ruvain, you hit a home run. You hit a home run, Ruvain. What's the new song? Isaiah 12. You're beautiful, Ruvain. There's the same song, but instead of saying Yud K, it's Yud K Vav K. That's the new song. The same words. You compare the song at the sea, John. You take out the Exodus 17 and you look at Isaiah 12. It's the same song that Isaiah says we're going to sing with one major change. Instead of Ozi v'Zimrosh Ka, Yud K Vav K. That's the new song. When the mask comes off and God doesn't play peekaboo no more. He doesn't have to hide anymore. The name can now be complete. Bayoimahu, Yeh Hashem Echad, Ushemo Echad. When's Bayoimahu? Isaiah 12. When his name is complete. Now we have John Balkari, we have the abomination, we have Abu Mamzer. His name can't be complete. But Isaiah 12 and Zechariah promises us, Bayoimahu, Yeh Hashem Echad. Stay tuned. You ain't seen nothing yet. 1 second, Ruvain. And therefore, the prophet Micha, God tells the prophet Micha in chapter 7, Ki mei tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, erenu neflaot. Like the days of your coming out of Egypt, God said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Erenu neflaot. I'm going to do something more marvelous. Stay tuned. Says the Zohar, Yitzias Mitzrayim was the seeds of Mashiach. The seeds of the Messianic era already planted in the first redemption from Egypt. They will reach fruition, Yehuda, in the final redemption when we'll sing a new song. As Reuven mentioned, Isaiah 12, this time God's name is complete, not incomplete. And this is what the prophet Micha means. Yes. And therefore, Kosh Eliyahu by the Seder. Eliyahu, he's the prophet of the final redemption. We read it yesterday. Yes, Reuven?
Yes. The new song, Shira Hadashah.
That's the Shir Hadashah.
In what do you call Haggadahs we have now. I don't know if the original one had it, but in the one since the 13th century or something.
Right.
They all say Shira Hadashah. I've checked it. And it's equal to 832. And what's that? Eretz Yisrael. Exactly Eretz Yisrael.
Wow.
That's the new song.
That's the new song. When God will remove his mask, Rabbi Yaakov Goldman, he will remove his mask. No more peekaboo. We won't need Abu Mamzer anymore. We'll have fulfilled our mission. So that's what we're waiting for. And I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you.
Rob,
Yes?
2 comments. First of all, when we were at Mara, we were getting the taste of the water.
It was bitter.
Right. He gave us
Because we knew the Exodus is just the beginning. We have a long and winding road to go. Therefore, we were bitter. We knew that.
right, but he gave us a taste of the water because he gave us what? Shabbos
Nachon.
and Dinim.
Nachon.
Paradamas.
Nachon.
Okay, he gave us a taste.
Nachon.
Another thing is we've seen the name defective, Yud K,
Right.
is also by something.
By Amalek. Same idea. Very good, Rabbi Aaron. But anyway, the Zohar says that the roadmap of the Gula will follow the first Gula. Zechariah tells us in chapter 9, Mashiach will come ala chamor. Mashiach will come riding a donkey, John. They're very strange. I would say at least a Volvo. Maybe a motorcycle. But why does God say, Zechariah 9, Mashiach will come ala chamor? Not a BMW, Yehuda. Prophets speak in metaphors. What the prophet means is Mashiach will come like a chamor. You ever see chamorim? On Mount Zion, we have many chamorim. Two-legged ones on top of the four-legged ones on Mount Zion. It's very strange. A chamor, Jessica, you see he'll take a few steps forward, stop and go backwards. Forwards and backwards. Not slow, he just moves backwards and forwards. If you look at the Exodus from Egypt, there were many setbacks. It didn't go smooth, John, at all. When Moses came with the message, let my people go, did things get better? They got worse. Moshe was depressed and dejected. There were many setbacks. There was the Dosam v'Aviram and the Erev Rav and the Cheta Egel. There were many setbacks. But in the end, after 40 years, we got to Pisgat Zev. So the Zohar says that the final redemption will follow exactly like the first redemption. Don't be discouraged by J Street, those traitors. Don't be discouraged by them. the Erev Rav, the Dosam, the Avirams, we had them throughout Jewish history. And just like they could not prevent the first redemption, even though they tried, they will not be able to prevent the final redemption. So Mashiach will come a la chamor. It doesn't mean literally. He'll probably take a Cadillac. But the redemption will follow the way a chamor goes, forwards and backwards. There'll be many setbacks and disappointments, just like the exodus from Egypt, Yehuda. Many setbacks, took 40 years, but we got there. So the final redemption, despite our Dosam ve'avirams today and the modern day Erev Rav J Street, despite that, the Geula will come. How do I know, Yehuda? Because I have the roadmap. What's the roadmap? What's the roadmap? The exodus from Egypt. Many disappointments, Moshe was ready to throw in the towel. God says, don't be. It's a chamor, forwards and backwards, but you'll get there. So we have the roadmap. And therefore, despite all of the disappointments and the terrible Jewish traitors that we had now and then, Erev Rav, Dosam ve'aviram syndrome, Rav Soloveitchik says something incredible. He says, why does the Torah pay such prominence to Dosam ve'aviram? Those traitor Jews who identified with the enemy. Why does the Torah give them such prominence? Says Rav Soloveitchik. We know the Torah is forever. So they were 3,300 years ago. Why does the Torah play up what they said? Says Rav Soloveitchik, the Torah was telling us that this is somehow a Jewish psychosis. We are condemned to have Dosan the Avirams throughout Jewish history. Who invented communism? Marx, Trotsky, those are the Dosan the Avirams. And throughout the Middle Ages, the worst anti-Semites were self-hating Jews who converted to Christianity. Pablo Cristiani debated the Ramban. And the modern day Dosan the Avirams, the J Streeters. So, says Rav Soloveitchik, the Torah pays them such prominence. It's a Jewish psychosis. It's somehow, we want to call it a phenomenon throughout Jewish history, not to be discouraged. We're going to be haunted by the Dosam ve'aviram syndrome throughout Jewish history, but we're going to make it despite them. So the Torah writes about them, Yehuda. We should not get discouraged. Mashiach will come despite J Street. Despite the traitorous Jews of the Dosam ve'aviram Erev Rav, it didn't stop the first redemption, Yehuda Lev, and it will not stop the final redemption. And we have to know it and not to be discouraged. And therefore the Torah pays them such prominence. Now, you can't ask the same 4 questions every year. People will get bored. I'm going to give you a different question. Ma nishtana Pesach mikol hachagim. Pesach is the only 2-day yontif from the Torah. Rosh Hashanah in the Torah is only 1 day. The second day is rabbinic. Shmini Atzeres, David, is a separate holiday. How do we know? You make a Shechiyanu. Shmini Atzeres, at the end of Sukkot, is a separate holiday. You make a Shechiyanu. Do you make a Shechiyanu or Shvi Shal Pesach? David, you make a Shechiyanu or Shvi Shal Pesach? No. Because the 7th day of Pesach is what? Part of Pesach. So, Ma Nishtana, I hope you're writing this down. Ma Nishtana Pesach Mikol HaChagim. It's the only 2-day yontif from the Torah. Madua Valama. No other 2-day yontif. For Shana 1 day min Torah. Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, separate holiday, make a Shechiyanu. Why is Pesach so unique and different? To answer this question, we have to ask another question. We know, we discussed it, John, the Ani Mamin. One of the 13 principles of faith in the Jewish religion is to believe in the becoming of Mashiach. To be a loyal Jew, you have to believe in the coming of the Messiah. Otherwise, you're out of the box, says the Rambam. So believing in Mashiach is so important. It's an ikar of Judaism. The last time I checked the Bible, I didn't see a pasuk commanding me to believe in the coming of the Mashiach. If it's an ikar of Judaism, wouldn't it be in the Chumash? And not only that, you check the Rambam Sefer HaMitzvot, the Rambam, who makes it an ikar of Yahadut, doesn't put it in the Sefer HaMitzvot. Ruvain, isn't that strange? He said ikar of Yahadut to believe in the coming of Mashiach. So the last time I checked the Sefer HaMitzvot, it wasn't there. Don't you think that the ikar of Judaism, to believe in the Mashiach, should be somewhere in the Torah? Somewhere in the Sefer HaMitzvot, it's totally absent. That's a Manishtana question. Says the Baal Shem Tov. One question answers the other, Rivka. You know why Pesach is the only 2-day Yontif from the Torah? Because the first day Yontif commemorates the Exodus from Egypt. The Shvi Shal Pesach commemorates the Exodus from Obama. The final Exodus. The first day of Pesach, we acknowledge the Exodus from Egypt. Who was the Messiah? Moshe Rabbeinu. And the final day of Pesach, we emphasize our belief that just like there was a first Exodus, there's going to be a final Exodus through Eliyahu Hanavi. Therefore, you put the Kos Shel Eliyahu when? On the Seder plate. Isn't that unbelievable? Beautiful. Reuben, you must have ESP. Therefore, the Baal Shem Tov came up with Sudat Mashiach on Shvi Shal Pesach. Because the Shvi Shal Pesach is all about Ani Mamin, B'Emunah Shalema, Sudas HaMashiach. So why a Suda, Rabbi Yaakov Sinai? You are what you eat. If you eat the Sudas of Mashiach, you will inculcate, I like that word, you will digest the Ani Mamin and coming of the Mashiach, because you are what you eat. So the Baal Shem Tov gave us tremendous chidush. Where is belief in the Mashiach and the Torah, Sharona? Where? Shvi Shal Pesach. You look at the Rambam, Shvi Shal Pesach, it's one of the Taryag mitzvot. There's a mitzvah to observe Shvi Shal Pesach. Says the Baal Shem Tov, that mitzvah is actually the Ani Mamin in what? And therefore you have a Sudas Mashiach on Shvi Shal Pesach. The first day we dedicate to the first Exodus. And the 7th day of Pesach, we reaffirm our belief that just like there was a first Exodus, there's going to be a final Exodus. Through Eliyahu Hanavi. So you put the cup on the Seder table, Sonia. So if someone's going to ask you Takasha, to ask your guest on Seder night, where's belief? Manishtana Pesach, it's the only Chag that's 2 days. Why? So yes, another question. Where's belief in Mashiach in the Torah? Shvi Shal Pesach. That is listed in the Torah. That's part of the Sefer HaMitzvos. So when you're observing Shvi Shal Pesach, David, mitzvah tzrichas kavana, Evelyn, you have to have kavana. When I'm observing Shvi Shal Pesach, what am I actually doing? Ani Mamin, B'Emunah Shalema. Because how do I know Mashiach will come? I have the roadmap. Sharona, I have the roadmap. So I know the first day is the roadmap for the final day. So just like God redeemed us the first time, there's going to be a final redemption. How do I know? I have the roadmap. And it's following precisely all the setbacks, all the disappointments. The Chamor. Mashiach will come on a Chamor. That's a metaphor. Hang in there. Don't despair. That's the Ani Mamin. And therefore, on Shvi Shal Pesach, we read Shirat Hayam. Why do we read Shirat Hayam? Where do you learn out the resurrection of the dead? Sanhedrin 91. What's the source? Az Yoshir Moshe. Then Moshe and the Jewish people will sing. So the Talmud Sanhedrin says, what do you mean they will sing? Remember the movie by Humphrey Bogart, Dead Men Tell No Tales? Dead people can't sing. Right, Jessica? So it says, then Moses and the Jews will sing. In Pashas B'Shalach, Exodus 17, it says Jewish people and Moses will sing. But dead people can't sing. Mikan, Tchias HaMesim in Torah. This is proof that what, David? The revival of the dead. Why do we read that on Shvi Shal Pesach? Because Shvi Shal Pesach reaffirms my belief in what? Who's going to resurrect the dead? Mashiach. Isn't that beautiful? Why you read the Shirat Hayam on Shvi Shal Pesach? And Shirat Hayam is the Makor in the Chumash to teach Tchias HaMesim, because dead people can't sing. Because Mashiach will resurrect the dead. So it's appropriate to read about the resurrection of the dead, Shvi Shal Pesach, which is all about what? Ani Mamin, Emunah Shalema, Mashiach, because he will what? Resurrect the dead. So it's appropriate to read that on Shvi Shal Pesach, which reaffirms my belief in resurrection of the dead through Mashiach Tzidkenu. Don't you get it?
Contrary to the Rambam.
What?
Rambam believes that when Mashiach comes, it's going to be a natural order.
Oh, now we opened up a Pandora's box. Ooh. Okay, Aaron hit a home run, but I'm prepared. Looks like you hit a home run. Avram, you look like you hit a home run. Ooh, Avram, I'm proud of you. Your kasha is asked by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Well, the Rambam, his kasha was, the kasha was as follows. The Rambam says when Mashiach comes, the world will go on basically the same, except we won't have to take orders from the abomination. That's what he says.
That doesn't sound like a question.
The Rambam makes a statement that the main difference between this world and Messianic era is the world will go on more or less the same, but Israel will be, we won't have to take any flack from the White House or from the UN. We'll have sovereignty, we'll be the superpower, and we won't have to worry about Obama and John Balkari. So, where the world won't change. Isn't the resurrection of the dead Shavona the greatest change? And the Rambam himself writes Ani Mamin, B'muna Shalema, Meisim Yechaye El, Barov Chazdo, Baruch Hadeyat, Shem Tehillah. So the Rambam in Perish of Mishnayos, Yehuda Lev, sings that I believe in the resurrection of the dead. Isn't that supernatural when he says the world will continue more or less? Resurrection of the dead, I don't think is the world continuing naturally. So your kash is asked by Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he says,
He believes in resurrection of
the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
sure.
What's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and Lubavitcher Rebbe? What's the difference? No. Moshe Rabbeinu is dead and nobody knows where he's buried. The Lubavitcher Rebbe is alive and everybody knows where he's buried. Yes, I'm not. Let me get to Teretz. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Tzaddik Avrocha, asked your kasha. He says, the Rambam is saying that initially, when the Mashiach first comes, the world will go on more or less. But afterwards, of course, they'll be supernatural. See, other Rishonim hold that the resurrection of the dead and the Mashiach will happen simultaneously through Mashiach. The Rambam says, no, Mashiach will be a normal king like King David, and the resurrection of the dead will happen later. But even the Rambam admits there'll be supernatural events, otherwise how could he make the resurrection of the dead a Ikav Yahadut? So that's about Rebbe's explanation. Other Rishonim say that the resurrection of the dead will be simultaneously with Mashiach. And the Rambam says, no, first Mashiach will come, the world will go on more or less, and only later on will the resurrection take place. So it's a question of what? Of time. Right? So they really don't argue, it's a time thing. Okay? So this is how Lubavitcher Rebbe answers your kasha.
Why the delay, Rob?
I don't know. Why the delay? I don't know. Right? I don't know why, but this is what the Rambam explained to Lubavitcher Rebbe asked your question. This is how he says. Mashiach will come, the world will go on more or less the same, we won't take orders from the White House, but after a while, whenever God sees fit, he will resurrect the dead himself, without the Messiah. Other Rishonim say no, the Mashiach will resurrect the dead. But anyway, they really don't argue, it's just a time factor. I don't want to get off the topic, please. What?
According to Rambam,
So initially there's no change, but after a while, the greatest change of all will be Ani Mam et Chiyas HaMesim. So it's just a time factor. That's how Lubavitcher Rebbe reconciles the Rambam. Okay? But that's the point that he makes. But anyway, let's move on over here. So we said, therefore, you read Shirat Hayam on the Shvi Shal Pesach, Shiras Hayam, dead people can't sing. That's the resurrection of the dead, whether it's Mashiach or that era. It represents the Messianic era. Okay? According to Rabbi Kaplan, he says Mashiach will use cloning to resurrect the dead. Cloning? Okay. Stay tuned. Okay? Stay tuned. Okay. Now, we read about the four sons. We read about the four sons, right? The four sons. Which son am I? Am I the Chacham? Am I the Rasha? Which son am I? if you're honest with yourself, we're all of them. My Rebbe Rapam Zatzal said, the 4 sons represent the inner struggle within each and every one of us. Sometimes we act like a chacham. Other times we lose it. We go off the deep end and act like a rasha. Other times we act like a tam, not knowing what to say or what to do. And sometimes, Shady Day Elishal, we don't even know what to ask. So the 4 sons are actually all of us at different stages of our lifetime. All of us, if we are honest, are a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde. And if you don't believe that, my Rebbe said, you don't know yourself. So the tafkid of Pesach night, we all have moments when we just don't know what to say, how to say it. So the Pesach night, we have to target those areas of our personality that are negative. We must accent the positive and tone down the negative. The Russian side of me, I got to tone it down. Right? You can't win every battle, John. You can't win every battle. You're going to lose some. But when the gun goes off, what's the final score on the scoreboard? Right? Life is all about riding high in April, shot down in May. Yaakov was shown a ladder on the dream. He saw angels going up and going down. Says the Baal Shem Tov, who are those angels? You and me and you. Sometimes we go up in life and sometimes we go down. It's inevitable. Don't be discouraged. Sometimes you're olim, sometimes you're yordim. But every yirida can be l'tzorech aliyah. Every yirida can be l'tzorech aliyah. You make the call. But don't be discouraged. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Ruvain. Sheva yipol tzadik. The tzaddik will fall 7 times. Why is he a tzaddik? What's the next word? For come, because he gets up. Everybody falls. The tzaddik in the Russia, Jessica, everybody falls. To be human means to sin. The difference is that the Russia likes to stay in the mud. It doesn't bother him. The tzaddik, despite his fall, he feels bad about it. He's ashamed, and he gets up. That's why he's a tzaddik. So on Pesach night, we have to try to tone down the Russian side of us and to play up the Chacham. That's what we have to do. Now, the most misunderstood part of the Haggadah, Ruvain, the Russia, what do we tell him? Now, first we get the Chacham. The Chacham says, I want to know all about Judaism. Chukim, Mishpatim, tell me all about Judaism. So what do you tell him? Ein maftir in achra pesach afikomen. From all the thousands of laws in Judaism, I would say you tell him Shabbat, Brit Milah, Yom Kippur. No, you tell him after you have the shawarma on Pesach night, no Jello. That's what you tell him, right, Lillian? Ein maftir pesach afikomen. After you eat the Pesach lamb, you want to have a little Jello, a little par of ice cream. No. Par of ice cream. In temple times, you eat the shawarma, and you want dessert, the Viennese table. Forget about it. That's Judaism. Say what, Ruvain?
Boundaries.
Rose. That's Judaism. Why is that Judaism? Discipline, self-control. Yes, that's Judaism. I have urges. I want to make love to my wife. She's a nida. I can't have her for 12 days. Why can't I have her? I can't. I want to eat before davening. I can't. I want to eat cheeseburgers. They're delicious. I can't.
You can if you use civil.
If you use parva cheese, right? Judaism is all about self-control, discipline. The first mitzvah given to a human being was what? Don't eat that non-kosher tree. Control yourself, Adam and Chava. That tree is not kosher. You want to sum up Judaism, Rabbi Yaakov Sinai, in one halacha. You have a nice shawarma, Pesach, delicious lamb chops. You want a little what? Par of ice cream. No, you can't have it. Judaism teaches discipline, self-control. limit yourself. That's Judaism. I want to have a Danish and a cup of coffee before davening. I'm not allowed. 12 days out of the month, I can't come near my wife even though I have urges. What? I want to have that cheeseburger. Why not? Why is Judaism all about self-control and limitations, Reuven? Why? You were right, but why? There's a mitzvah in the Torah, V'alachta b'drachav, to walk in God's ways. Deuteronomy 8, to walk in God's ways. How did God create the universe, says the Zohar? How could anything exist? God is everything and everywhere. How can there be an amoeba, let alone a human being? Tzimtzum. So to create the world, God restricted himself. He disciplined himself, kaviyachol, self-control. Otherwise, no atom could exist, let alone a person. God is everywhere and everything. So to create the world, God practiced tzimtzum, kaviyachol. He limited himself. He restricted himself, self-control. Otherwise, there's no universe. And the tafkid of a Jew is what? V'halachta b'drachav, ma'u afata. So therefore, Judaism is all about limitations, discipline, self-control, because that's how God created me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So by controlling myself and limiting myself, what am I doing, Yehuda? I'm imitating the boss with a capital B. And that's Judaism. Therefore, Judaism in one sentence is what? No jello after shawarma. I have an urge. After eating a delicious lamb chop, don't you want a little pie of ice cream? No. Look at the boss. Didn't he limit himself? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. V'alachta b'drachav, mahu afata. And therefore, the first mitzvah given to human beings was control yourself. Don't eat that tree. Yes.
And also, don't yell at your wife.
Don't yell at your wife. What? What?
Control your temper. Keep me patient. Be allowed to be dog.
The best thing is make believe you're deaf. Sometimes when your wife yells at you, Lillian, you have to make believe you're deaf. Say what? I didn't hear that. No, you didn't hear it. No, Rapam Zatzal said, Rav Yaakov, Rapam Zatzal said, the secret to a happy marriage, Rav Yaakov, is the dry shins. Schlingen, Schweigen, Schenken. Schenken. Schenken means to bevater. Schlingen, one spouse says cross words. Schlingen, you swallow. Schweigen, don't answer back. And Schenken. Schenken means to be mevater. And that's the secret to a happy marriage. The three shins. Three shins? Oh, now we get to the most misunderstood part of the Haggadah, Reuven. Please, you have to say this over Pesach night. The most misunderstand. The Rasha. What do we say to him? We say to the Rasha, we knock out his teeth. I'm not a dentist. Dr. Abramson is not here, is he? I'm not a dentist. What do we knock out his teeth? The English says, blunt his teeth. I don't have no file to blunt his teeth. What are we saying? And we say to him, me, not you. If you were there, you're not going to be redeemed. That's how you talk to a guest at the Seder. Stick it to him. Me, not you. You're out. That's how you talk to a person sitting at your Seder table. Get real, Aryeh. Rab Aaron, I mean. So my Rebbe Rapam said it's a complete misunderstanding. David, you got to listen to this. He said, Ilu ha sham. If you were there 3,300 years ago, before the Torah was given, you wouldn't be redeemed. Thank God you're not sham, you're po. You're here, sitting at my table. You're one of us. Ilu ha sham. If you were there then, before we had the Torah, the lifesaver, you would be lost. Thank God you're not sham, you're po. You're one of us. That's what it means. People have been saying that God 60 years. They don't know what they're saying. You're not Sham, you're Po. Thank God you're not Sham, you're Po. You have the Torah. You're with us. You're one of us. And Moshe Feinstein was asked, can a Rasha be used to daven for the minyan? Or even be Shliach Tzibur?
Yes.
He said yes.
You're not from the Meraglim.
You're ahead of me. You guys are cooking with gas today. Moshe made Aaron's point. He said, where do you learn out a minyan? From 10 Rishayim, the Meraglim were wicked. Why? Why can't you learn a minyan from Tzadikim? Why Dafke Rishayim? To prove that what? That even 10 Rishayim come together, you daven with them and the Shekhinah's there. He could be a Shliach Tzibur, says Rabbi Moshe. Even a Rasha. You learn out from the Meraglim. 10 Yidden get together, they daven, the Shekhinah's there. So that's how you talk? Get out, knock out his teeth, I'm not a dentist. Said my Rebbe Rapam, it's a complete misunderstanding. Hakeshinav means sharpen his connection to his shins. The word shinav doesn't only mean teeth, it can mean the letter shin. Sharpen his connection to his shins. Why does the Tefillin Shel Rosh contain 4 parshias?
Is the shin with 4 parts?
Why is there a 4-headed shin on the Tefillin? Says the Zohar, the mamas. The 4-headed shin represents the 4 holy mothers of Israel. And the Tefillin have 4 sections, not 5, not 3. If they have it 3, they would represent what? The papas. The mamas. The mamas and the papas. So the Zohar says the 4-headed shin represents the 4 mothers of Israel and the 4 parshas, and therefore the entire Seder night, the motif is 4. 4 questions, 4 sons, 4 cups of wine, 4 terms of endearment, 4 Torah mitzvahs on Pesach night, Korban Pesach, Matzah, Mori, Gadato Lebincha. The 4 Torah mitzvahs on Pesach night: eat the lamb, Pesach, Matzah, Mori, Gadato Lebincha. The Haggadah, that 4 Torah. So the Zohar says the entire motive of the Seder night is 4, because the Talmud says in Saita 11, the entire exodus happened, Yehuda Lev, not for the righteous chief rabbis, the Noshim Tzidkoniot. Who represents the righteous women? The 4 mothers. They represent and symbolize the righteous women. So we tell him, you're not as bad as you think you are. We got to sharpen his connection to the 4 shins, the 4-headed shin representing the mothers of Israel. You're still part of the Jewish people. You're still a grandchild of the 4 mothers. Sharpen his shins.
Since he heard Kiddush, his sins were forgiven.
What?
Since he heard Kiddush,
Right?
he's not such a Russian.
You're not as evil as you think you are. You're still connected. Your sins are still intact. You're connected to the 4 mothers. You have the schus of the mothers and the fathers. You're not as evil as you think you are. So it's a complete misunderstanding. The guy is sitting at the table, you're going to shtech him. That don't make no sense, David. People 60 years read Haggadah, they don't know what they're saying. Thank God my Rebbe told me what it means. Haket shinav. Sharpen his connection to his shins. You are a child of the Sar Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. The 4-headed shin on the Tefillin. You're still connected. The kesher for Tefillin. What is the kesher? The love knot. God and the Jewish people are knotted forever. The love knot. What did God show Moses? In the midst of, he showed him the knot of the Tefillin. The love and knot. That's the love knot. No matter how wicked we are, you and me and you, we're loved together. We're knotted together. I think in English it's called the love knot. And that's represented by the 4-headed shin, the 4 mothers of Israel. That's what you're actually telling him. You're encouraging him. Thank God you're not Sham. Thank God you're what? Po. Puts a whole different light on it.
Is that when
Po. They didn't have the Torah, Nebuch. The Torah wasn't given yet, so they got fakrochen. But once you have the Torah, Connie, that's the lifesaver. A Jew who has Torah, even though he doesn't keep it, he's eternally connected.
is that when God shows Moshe's back? That's what he saw.
When Moshe saw Kaviochel, God's back, he saw the kesher of tefillin. What does that mean? That no matter how wicked the Jews are, we are what? Still connected to him in the eternal love knot. And therefore you read Shir Hashirim when? On Pesach night. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I got another Manishtana question for you, Sharona. Manishtana. Manishtana Pesach, it's the only Chag that we and the Torah are not on the same page. Rivka, check me out. How does the Torah call Sukkos? Sukkos. And we call it Sukkos. Torah calls Shavuos, Shavuos. Yom Kippurim, Yom Kippurim. Manishtana Pesach. Pesach is the only Chag, Ruvain, where we and the Torah are not on the same page. I'll prove it to you. The Torah calls it Chag HaMatzot, and we call it Chag HaPesach. You look in the Torah, Pesach only refers to the lamb on the goat, Erev Pesach. Pesach in the Torah never refers to the Chag. It refers to the sacrifice that took place, what? A day before Pesach. The Torah called it Chag HaMatzot. The hotel should advertise Chag HaMatzot special. Scholar in residence, Rabbi Sprecher. No, it doesn't say Chag HaMatzot, it says Pesach. Why don't you call it the same language the Torah? Manishtana Pesach Mikol HaChagim, where we and the Torah are not on the same page. Is that a good Manishtana question? All the other Chagim, we call it the same name the Torah does. Shmini Atzeres, Yom Kippurim, Sukkot, Yom Kippur, the same name, except Pesach. Says Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev, why does God call it Chag HaMatzot? Zacharti lo chesed norayich, lechtech achvar b'midbar. God says, I call it Chag HaMatzot. He tells Jeremiah too, I remember you were my young bride, how you loved me, you followed me in the desert. You didn't say, where are you taking me? There's no Motel 6, no Howard Johnson. We had no food. All we had was a shtik ala matzah. God said, I remember your loving bridal days when you said, sweetheart, I'll follow you anywhere. We had no food, no lodging. All we had was a piece of matzah. So God praises us, and he calls the Yontif Chag HaMatzot, playing up our love and devotion to him, the matzah. We, on the other hand, call it Pesach. Why does we bring a Pesach lamb? That even though our firstborn were also sacrificing to idols, God lovingly passed over the Jewish homes. When a Jew worships idols, it's much worse than a non-Jew. Afal Pikain, God lovingly passed over. So, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. Each lover sings the praises of the other. God sings our praises, Chag HaMatzot, and we sing God's praises, Chag HaPesach, that he lovingly passed over and spared us, even though we were no better than the Mitzrim. So therefore, we and the Torah call it different names. Ani ledodi, still got 5 minutes, for Dodi li. Isn't that beautiful? And therefore you read Shir Hashirim on Pesach night. Each lover is what? Lovey-dovey to the other one. God sings our praises, Chag HaMatzot, and we sing his praises, Chag HaPesach. V'hi sha'amda l'avotenu. V'hi sha'amda l'avotenu. This has stood by us forever. In each generation they tried to destroy us, but we're indestructible. What does V'hi mean? Who knows Hebrew here? V'hi means she. So the English says, and this, it. And it is this that stood by us. What's the this? And it is this that has stood by us. Ruvain.
And the irony is, Rav, that we cover the matzahs there.
Vehi is feminine. He doesn't. You can ask Upan teacher Yehuda. Vehi, Vav, Hey, Yud Aleph. He means she. She. That's why we're still here. What's the she? The neshama, the godly soul is feminine. You know why we're indestructible? Ki chelek Hashem amo. I am a rock. God in Deuteronomy 32 calls himself Hatzur. God says, I am the rock. And later on in Deuteronomy 32, he says, Ki chelek Hashem amo. God is a portion of his people. That's what it literally says in the Hazinu, Devarim 32. After it says God is the rock, Hatzur, Tamim Pa'alo, solid as a rock, the symbol of what? Permanence, indestructibility, the rock. After that, God says, Ki chelek Hashem amo. God is a portion of his people. That every Jew is a piece of the rock. They got that from us too. And just like the rock is eternal, we have a godly soul that makes me eternal as well. Despite Obama and Abu Mamzer, we have a godly soul. We're eternal. No matter what they think, because we are part of the rock. Devarim 32. Hatzur Tamim Pa'oloi. God says, I am the rock. I am the rock. And you, Yidden, Ki chelek Hashem amo. God is a chelek of his people. That every Jew has what? Chelek Elahai Mimau. Every Jew has a godly soul. I'm a soul, man. He, she, the godly soul, makes me indestructible. And therefore, no matter what they plan against us, Hitler, Arafat, John Balkeri, it won't do them no good. All of our enemies, where are they? Where are the Phoenicians? Where are the Babylonians? Where are the Assyrians? Where are the Greeks, the Romans? Where are they? On the 60 feet of sand. But we're still here because we are Vihi. We have a godly soul. And just like he's eternal, we are eternal. That's why we're so hated. They know that. The UN knows that. It's like a bone in their throat. They know we're eternal people. And they can't swallow it. All the other nations are extinct. We're still here. What are you still doing here, you Jews? You should have been extinct thousands of years ago. Toynbee, Arnold Toynbee. You heard of him? Yes. The historian. He was breaking his head. How could you still be here? You're like a bad cold. You keep coming back. What is it with you? He doesn't know. We have a godly soul. I'm a soul man. That stood by us. That's why no matter what they plan, we are here. Yes, doctor.
We'll tell it briefly. There's a story.
What?
I'll tell it briefly. There's a story about the Polyvisual.
Go ahead.
Everybody knows he was one of the master fundraisers.
Right.
He could get money out of anybody. And he was on a visit to Rome trying to raise money.
Yeah.
It was the middle of the winter. And
Right.
It was pouring with rain. And he demanded to go and see the Arch of Titus.
Right.
And,
Right.
And one of his students said, well, no, but it's pouring.
Pouring, why?
It's bitter cold.
Nachon, beautiful. Can I finish the story?
So
Yeah.
the
Nachon.
Hope said, no, you must take me.
Right.
So they took him to the taxi.
The Arch of Titus.
Then he stood there by the Arch of Titus and he said, Titus, wo bist du jetzt?
That's right. Titus. It's written on the Arch of Titus, Judaea capta. The Jewish people are captive, destroyed. So the Punisher Rebbe went there. 2,000 years later, he said, Titus, you wrote that. Where are you? And where are we? Who's destroyed? Now, you mind me can tell a quick story about a fundraiser. Can I tell a quick story? You have time for a quick story? Yes. A fundraiser story, okay? Leave you on a light note here. This little Yidel was in a Texas bar. Yidel went in for a drink. He was thirsty, a skinny little Yidel went in for a sarsaparilla in a Texas bar. And all these big bulvans, the big bartender, all these bulvans, and the bartender is having a contest. He squeezes a lemon, the bartender, and he says, anyone that can squeeze a drop out of this lemon after I get through, I'll give you $100. Big bulvan bartender squeezes the lemon, And then he challenged any of the customers, you get one drop after my squeeze, you get $100. So all the bulvanim get up there, trolley athletes, they squeeze, they can't get no dropout because the big bulvan, the bartender, squeezed the last drop. They tried, they couldn't do it. The skinny Yidala says, can I try? So the bartender says, you skinny Yidala, what are you, crazy? Please let me try. Takes, you get $100. The Yidala, skinny little Yidala, the big bulvans couldn't get a dropout. The skinny Yidala stretches, and lo and behold, a drop comes out. So the bartender faints. How could you do it? What's your profession? The Yidala says, I'm a fundraiser. Don't you get it? I'm a fundraiser. Thank you very much. Thank you.